Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi shir.
Shalom Bracha, and welcome back to today's Daf Yomi Shabbos Daf Ches. We're 5 lines from the top. Says the Gemara, Amar Abaye, Zorak kaveres l'rishus harabim. If one is standing in the rishus hayachid and he throws a kaveres, a round basket made of reeds, which resembles the shape of a kaveres of a beehive. It was a cylinder-shaped basket, and perhaps the beekeepers used to use it as an artificial beehive. They used to keep their honey inside. So if one throws this item from Rishus HaYachid out to the Rishus HaRabim, so is he chayiv? Depends how large, what size a basket it is. Amar Abaye, Zorak kaveres l'Rishus HaRabim. Gavoya Yud, if it's 10 tfachim high, ve'eino rochav vav, but it's not yet 6 tfachim in diameter, so the diameter of this circle is not 6 tfachim, in that case he's chayiv, because it's considered to be an item, a chayfetz, and when he throws it from one rishus to the other, he is chayiv. However, rochava vav, but if this kaveres, if this basket has a diameter of 6 tfachim, in this case he's pater. Why? Explains Rashi. Because one is only chayiv for throwing a chayfetz, an item, an object. But if it's large enough to be considered a rishus, a domain by its own right, in that case, he's pater. Why, says Rashi? Because in the Mishkan, we don't find that they says toss around rishuyos. We find perhaps the craftsmen, the needle workers used to share needles. They said toss a needle one to the other, but we don't find that they threw around rishuyos. They threw domains. Therefore, since everything is derived from the Mishkan, if one throws an item which is large enough to be considered a rishus, it is 10 tefachim high and it is wide 4 by 4, which is considered rishus hayachid, he is pater. So how do we get to the number of wide 6? Explains Rashi, because the diagonal of a square of 4 by 4 is actually 5.6, and therefore we require that the area of the kaveres should be able to contain and accommodate a shear of a rishus, which is a square of 4 by 4, and therefore if it is a diameter of 6 tfachim, it certainly can contain this square of 4 by 4. Asks Rashi, so why do we need that much? If a diagonal of 4 by 4 is merely 5.6 tfachim, so why does Abaye state that up until 6 tfachim is chayiv? Says Rashi, true, really 5.6 is sufficient to be considered rishus, and indeed he's pater, but Abaye is presenting the halacha in a more stringent fashion in order to safeguard Isurei Shabbos, in order that we don't come to do a mikshah, to do an aver, to do a hitzah, and therefore Abaye was machmir, was more stringent in the way he presented the halacha, that up until 6 he is chayiv. So the concept here is that if it's small enough to be considered an object, a chayfetz, then he's chayiv for hitzah. But if it's large enough that is considered a rishus, it is 10 tefachim high, and it accommodates a square of 4 by 4. In that case, has the number rishus hayachid. The dimension of rishus hayachid is 10 high and 4 by 4 square. Therefore, he is pater. Again, says the Gemara, Abaye Zor kaveres l'rishus harabim gvoya yud vein rechava vav chayiv. Rechava vav, then it's considered rishus pater. Rav Amar afilu eina rechava vav pater. Even if it's smaller than a 6, and it doesn't accommodate the square of 4 by 4, nevertheless he's still pater. Why? Because the concept according to Rav is that even if it's not a rishus, nevertheless we require that the entire object, entire chayfetz, should be contained in the rishus harabim when it lands. Therefore, says Rav, a kaveres which is 10 tefachim high, a basket of that size, it's inevitable that there will be some slivers of the reeds which will extend, which will protrude past the rim, and therefore it will be going beyond the reach of Rishus HaRabim, will be in the Makom P'tur. And in that case, since the entire object won't be contained within the Rishus HaRabim, it won't be within 10 tefachim Rishus HaRabim, therefore he's pater. Says the Gemara, Rav Amar, I agree with you. I agree with Abaye to the concept of throwing rishuyos, that he is pater. However, I want to add one more thing. Afilu eina rochava vav pater. Even if it's not wide enough to be considered rishus, it's still pater. My time efshar l'kroi mi shalkana. It's impossible. It's inevitable that there will be some slivers of the reeds shelo yalu l'mala ma'asara that won't extend past the rim of this kaveres, and since the kaveres is 10 tefachim high, the reeds will extend beyond 10 tefachim, thereby leaving part of the kaveres outside Rosh Hashanah. We recall that Rosh Hashanah only extends up until 10 tefachim. Past that is a makam tur. Therefore, it can't be chayiv when the kaveres lands in Rosh Hashanah in this manner, because part of it is still outside Rosh Hashanah, and therefore it's not a complete hanacha in Rosh Hashanah. Tosfos points out that Abaye disagrees with this. Abaye holds that these slivers, these kroimi shalkana, are not chashiv, and therefore they're not significant enough to be able to determine and define the location of the kaveres. We consider the kaveres to be completely within the realm of Rosh Hashanah, completely within 10 tefachim, although, despite the fact that there are some slivers that are extending beyond that, it's not chashiv, it's batal, it's not significant to determine the location of this kaveres. And therefore, according to Abaye, if the kaveres, although it's 10 tefachim high, but it does not contain the proper width, it doesn't have the diameter of 6 tefachim, which can accommodate a square of 4x4, thereby it is not a reshus, it is merely a chayfetz, and he is chayev upon throwing this item in Rosh Hashanah. Continues the Gemara. Okay, so this was regarding a kaveres which landed on shulayim, on the bottom. It was right side up with the rim facing upward. What about a case where kafa al piyah? If he threw the kaveres in a manner where the piyah, the rim, the mouth was facing downward, so it was overturned, and that's how it came to land in Rosh Hashanah. So in this case, we have an entirely different set of rules that will apply. Kafa al piyah, says the Gemara, shiva mashu chayev. In that case, it will be as follows: if the kaveres is 7 and a bit, for instance 7.1, it has the height of 7.1 tefachim, in that case, he is chayev upon throwing it in Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because as soon as the kaveres will come to land on top of Rosh Hashanah, as soon as it gets closer to the Rosh Hashanah, within 3 tefachim of Rosh Hashanah, at that point, the halacha of lavud will be activated. We know there's a halacha of Meshmei Sinai that any gap which is less than 3 tefachim is considered to be closed off, considered to be sasam. Therefore, if this kaveres is landing face down upon Rosh Hashanah, as soon as it reaches within 3 tefachim of Rosh Hashanah, for instance 2.9, when it gets to that point, it triggers, it activates the concept of lavud, and it's considered as though the gap is non-existent, as though the walls of the kaveres are extending straight down, flush to the ground, to the full of Rosh Hashanah, and it's considered to be munach, to completely come to a resting position in Rosh Hashanah. In this case, says the Gemara, we have to take a look at the dimensions of the kaveres. So if at that point, when it activates lavud, the entire kaveres is found within 10 tefachim of the ground of Rosh Hashanah, it is chayav, because the item is completely found and munach on Rosh Hashanah. But if part of it should extend beyond the reach of Rosh Hashanah, should be outside the realm, outside the 10 tefachim of Rosh Hashanah, higher than 10 tefachim from the ground, in that case, since the hanacha takes place when part of the item is still outside Rosh Hashanah, it is not a complete hanacha, and he's pater. Says the Gemara, if so, kafa al piyah, if he overturn the kaveres, the basket, on its mouth, on its face, it's falling on Rosh Hashanah facing downward, overturned. In that case, it will depend how large, how tall the kaveres is. Shiva mashu chayev, if the kaveres is 7 and a bit, for instance 7.1, he's chayev. Why? Because as soon as it reaches the point of lavud, which is a little bit less than 3 tefachim, say 2.9, so as soon as the 7.1 kaveres reaches the point of 2.9, so if we add the two amounts, 7.1 plus 2.9, we only have 10 tefachim. So the entire kaveres is within 10 tefachim of the Rosh Hashanah and is chayiv, because it's a proper legal hanacha. However, shiva mechza, but if the kaveres is larger, is taller than 7.1, for instance 7.5, in this case, he's pater. Why? Because when we reach the point that we activate the lavud, which is 2.9, part of the kaveres is still outside Rosh Hashanah. Because if we add 2.9 to 7.5, we have more than 10 tefachim. Therefore, during the hanacha, b'sh'as, the masa hanacha, since part of the chayfetz is outside the reach of Rosh Hashanah, it's not entirely contained in the Rosh Hashanah, so therefore it's not considered to be hanacha, and he's pater. Says the Gemara, Rav Ashi Omar, Afilu Shivu Mechza Chayiv. Even in this case, when the kaveris is 7.5, he's still chayav. Why? Because the concept of lovet cannot be applied in this situation. My time, mechitzos, the mechitzos, the walls of this kaveris, of this basket, l'soichan asuyis, are meant for their interior, to serve their toich, to contain something within them. For instance, the honey. If so, says Rav Ashi, when the kaveris is overturned, it's upside down, it certainly can't serve its purpose. It can't perform the function of containing something within it. If so, we certainly can't consider the walls as being active and extending beyond their actual kli, to extend down to the ground and create the lovet and close up the gap. And therefore, says Rav Ashi, there's no lovet taking place. Even if the kaveris is very tall, it's 7.5, and it's coming to land down on its mouth, says Rav Ashi, lovet will not be activated in this case, since the mechitza is not functioning properly. They only function properly when they're right side up. In this case, they're not doing a shimush. They're not functioning, and in this case, they cannot extend and close up the gap and create a lovet. Because what's the point of lovet? How does lovet work? It's not as though we ignore the gap. It works as follows. The Halacha Mishmesina tells us. For instance, when we have a wall which has a small hole which is less than 3 tefachim, we view the function, the shimish of the wall, as though it extends into the gap as well, just as the wall itself provides a partition of mechitza. It prevents trespassing from one side to the other. In the same token, it also functions at the place of the gap as well. We can't pass through the gap either, because it's too small for one to pass through. It's less than 3 tefachim. Therefore, we view the function, the shimush, the power of the mechitza as though it extends into the gap as well. It continues beyond the solid portion into the hole, into the gap as well. So the point is that the mechitza is functioning throughout. Similarly, regarding a kli utensil, the point of lovet here is that the functioning, the mechitzas of the utensil functions past its contained area. It can function past, it can extend, it can have an effect and enclose an area even beyond itself. Says Rav Ashi, that's only regarding a partition, a true mechitza, a wall, which serves as a partition and it closes an area, it blocks traffic. In that case, it blocks the closed area as well. We see it as though it continues into the entire area and it closes up the gap. And it's considered to be kulei sasim, completely closed off. However, in the case where we have a kli which is overturned, in this case it's not functioning. It can't perform its shimush. It can't contain any items. Therefore, it certainly can't extend past the kli and provide a lovet and close up any gaps. It's inactive. It's deactivated, and therefore lovet in this case will not apply. And as such, even when the kaveris is very tall, it's 7.5 tefachim, for instance, he'll be chayiv, because since there is no lovet being applied in this case, the hanacha will only happen when the kaveris actually lands down on the bottom of Shus Rabim, and in that case it's certainly contained completely in Shus Rabim because it's only 7.5 tefachim high, and the Shus Rabim extends up until 10 tefachim. So in summary, if one is Zora Kaveris, throws a basket in the shape of a kaveris, of a hive, Abaye and Rava both agree that if it has the dimensions of a rishus, for instance it's 10 tefachim high and has a diameter of 6 tefachim, where we can accommodate, we could insert a square, a floor space, a horizontal space of an area of 4 tefachim square, therefore it has a din of a rishus, and the one who is zerek rishus is pater. However, if it's less than 6 tefachim in diameter, according to Abaye, is chayiv because it's not a rishus. According to Rav, even in this case, it's a pater because the kroimias, the slivers of reeds, extend beyond the 10 tefachim of Rishus Rabim. Therefore, it's not fully contained. The item is not fully within the realm, the rishus, the reign of Rishus Rabim, and therefore he's pater. What about the case where he throws the kaveris up here? He throws it face down. Abaye and Rava both agree that if the kaveris is merely, for instance, 7.1, in that case is chayiv, because if you combine it with the lovet, which is about 2.9, we only get to the point of 10, meaning the whole kaveris will be within the 10 tefachim of the ground. But if the kaveris is larger, it's 7.5 tefachim high. In this case, he's patur, because once you reach the point of activation of Lavid, which is 2.9, part of the kaveris, the bottom side, will be protruding beyond the reach of Rishus Harabim, and therefore the entire container is not contained in Rishus Harabim, and he is patur. Rav Ashi says in either case it's chayiv, because Lavid is never applied in this case of an overturned kaveris, since it's not functioning properly. We can't extend the walls of the kaveris. It is not being mishamish, it is deactivated. Therefore, since Lavid is not applied, he is chayiv, even in the case of a tall kaveris, because the hanacha will only take place once it reaches the actual ground, and therefore it will be fully contained at that point in the 10th tefachim of Rishus Harabim. Now, Taisus Yishanim asks on Rashi, how could Rashi say that in the Mishkan we don't find this type of phenomena where they threw rishuyos one to the other? Says the Taisus Yishanim, we do find that they transported the Aron, the Mizbeach, which certainly had the dimensions of a rishus. So why does Rashi say we don't find this concept in the Mishkan? Answers Rav Moshe Feinstein. Rashi means to say we don't find that they used to throw rishuyos. Certainly they transported them, they carried them. But Rashi means to say we don't find that they threw them, that they tossed them around. And therefore when one tosses around the rishus, he is patur. Continues the Gemara, Amar Ula, Amud Tisha B'Rishus Harabim. If there is a post which is 9 tefachim high in Rishus Harabim, V'Rabim Mekatfin Olav, and the public uses it to adjust their loads on it, so it's something which comes to use, which functions and helps the aids, the Bnei Rishus Harabim, the public that are walking through the Rishus Harabim. In that case, says Ula, this post has a din, has a status of Rishus Harabim. Therefore, V'Zorak V'Nochal Gabav Chayev. If one throws an item from 4 amas away onto this amud, which is 9 tefachim high, he is chayev. Explains more why is it constituted Rishus Harabim, my time. Pachas mishloisha, if something is less than 3 tefachim high off the ground of Rishus Harabim, that has a din of Rishus Harabim. Why? Because midras darsi le'rabim, because the public tramples on top of it. Mishloisha adatisha. But if it's between 3 tefachim and 9 tefachim high, in that case, it doesn't constitute Rishus Harabim. It doesn't have the status. It's not part of the surface of Rishus Harabim, because the public doesn't tread on it. It's too high to tread on. Lo midras darsile, people don't trample upon it. V'lo ketufim mekatfi, neither is it used to adjust their load. It's too low for that for a purpose, and therefore it doesn't have a din of Rishus Harabim. What then is it considered? Well, that depends on the surface area. If it's less than 4 tefachim by tefachim wide, then it has a din of a makam tur. It's an exempt area. If it has a surface area of 4 by 4, then it has a din of a carmelis. So this pole, which is between 3 and 9, is certainly not a Rishus Harabim. It can either be a carmelis or makam tur. Finally, says the Gemara, a post which is tisha, which is 9 tefachim high, in that case, is very convenient to use as a adjusting area to adjust your load. Certainly the public uses it to straighten out and adjust their loads on it, and therefore, since it's serving the purpose of Bnei Rishus Harabim, it is considered to be part of the domain, part of the Rishus Harabim, for all matters and purposes. Amarle Abaye Rav Yosef, Guma Mai. What about a guma? What about a pit in Rishus Harabim? Does it have the same status as a post? Perhaps, since the Bnei Rishus Harabim, they deposit their items there temporarily, so it too would have a din of a amud, and if it would be, for instance, 9 tefachim deep, which is the perfect depth for depositing items. If it's too shallow, then people will hesitate to put their items there because it can get damaged by the Bnei Rishus Harabim, since it will be protruding out of the pit. So if it's deep enough, it's 9 tefachim deep, Rashi learns, perhaps it is functionable for the Bnei Rishus Harabim, and it will have a din of Rishus Harabim as well. What about a pit? Rav Yosef responded, yes indeed, the same halacha will apply to a guma. So if it's 9 tefachim deep, it will be considered to be part of Rishus Harabim. Rav Amar, no, beguma loy, a pit is different. My time hashmish al diatchak, a usage which is inconvenient, which is forced usage. It's not something convenient. It's down a pit below. You have to bend down. It's not convenient at all. Lo yishmei tashmish is not considered a proper usage, and therefore it does not have a status of Rishus Harabim. What then? Well, it depends. It depends on the dimensions. It could be a makam p'tur, it could be a karmelis, as we mentioned before by the post. If it's narrower than 4x4, then it's a makam p'tur. If it has the surface area of 4x4, then it's a karmelis. But certainly not a Rosh Hashanah. So Machlekes Abaye says even a guma is like a amud and has a din of Rosh Hashanah. According to Rava, a guma is a tashmish al deyat chak. It's an inconvenient usage, and therefore lo yishmei tashmish. It is not considered to be part of Rosh Hashanah. Now it's interesting that earlier in Daf Zayin we had a similar machlekes between Abaye and Rava in a similar phenomenon regarding chayr Rosh Hashanah. The Gemara told us that a hole, a crevice off the Rosh Hashanah, a hole that is present in a wall, a kaisel facing Rosh Hashanah, according to Abaye, has a status of Rosh Hashanah, chayr Rosh Hashanah. According to Rava, no, it is not considered like Rosh Hashanah. So here we have a very similar machlekes. Are these two things linked? Are they connected? It appears from the Gemara not, because the Gemara puts them into two contexts. The Gemara before has a one machlekes regarding chayrim. The Gemara here adds another machlekes regarding a guma with another explanation. So it seems from the Gemara that these two concepts are not related. Why is that so? Because certainly if we focus on them, we see there's a big difference. There are distinctions between the two things. Perhaps we would be able to say that, even according to Abaye, that a chayr, a hole off Rosh Hashanah, is considered to be Rosh Hashanah because it's fully functionable. The members, the public walking in the street can deposit their items there. It's convenient. It's off to the side. It's up in the height of the wall. However, a guma, perhaps that's considered to be lenichat hashmishtei. It's tashma de'at chak. It's down below in the pit. It's inconvenient. So perhaps even Abaye would agree that this is not a Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, the Gemara here teaches us, yes, Abaye holds, even in this case. Abaye asked Rabbi Yosef, what about a guma? Rabbi Yosef responded, yes, even in this case has a din of Rosh Hashanah, even though it's adeyat chak, it's down in a pit below, and requires bending down, it's the adeyat chak, nevertheless, it's a Rosh Hashanah. In the same token, we can say that regarding Rava as well, there's a difference between two cases. Even if a chayr Rosh Hashanah, according to Rava, would not be considered Rosh Hashanah, but perhaps a guma, a pit which is right on the surface, right in the middle of the thoroughfare of Rosh Hashanah, it's not off to the side, it's not in a wall off to the side. Perhaps in this case of a guma, Rava would agree that it has a din of Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, the Gemara needs to teach us no. According to Rava, even a guma, which is right on the surface of Rosh Hashanah, it's right in the middle of the way, it's not off to the side like a hole in the wall. Even in this case, Rava holds, is not a Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because although it's right in the middle of the street, nevertheless, since it's a tashmish adeyat chak, it's an inconvenient usage, it's a forced use, it requires bending down, it's inconvenient, therefore it's lo yishmei tashmish. So therefore it seems that these two discussions are unrelated. At the end of the day, Abaye and Rava hold similar views in both cases. Abaye holds a chayr Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Hashanah. Same thing regarding a guma. Rava holds in both cases. A chayr or a guma is not considered to be Rosh Hashanah, but they're for different reasons. Says the Gemara, Esvei Rav Abba Bar Masna LeRava. Rav Abba Bar Masna challenged Rava. How can you say that a guma, a pit in Rosh Hashanah, doesn't have the status of Rosh Hashanah? The Brisa seems to teach us otherwise. Says the Brisa, Hoysa kupa seibonachas b'Rosh Hashanah. If one's box, a kupa, was resting in Rosh Hashanah, and how large was this kupa? It was Gvoya Sora, it was 10 tfachim high, Uruchava Dalad, and 4 tfachim wide. So it had the height of Rosh Hashanah, it was 10 tfachim high. It had the surface area of Rosh Hashanah, it was 4 by 4 tfachim wide. In that case, it is a Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, one may not transfer from within this kupa to the Rosh Hashanah, and the same vice versa, because it has a din of Rosh Hashanah. But if this kupa is less than 10 by 4, for instance, it's only 9 tfachim high, in this case, it does not have a din of Rosh Hashanah, and metaltlin, one certainly can transfer an item from within this kupa to Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because it is not a Rosh Hashanah any longer. Ask Rashi Akasha. Okay, it's not a Rosh Hashanah because it doesn't have the height of Rosh Hashanah. But since it's 4 by 4 tfachim, it should be a karmelis. Why can we transfer from within this kupa to the Rosh Hashanah? We know that midrabanan, one may not transfer an item from a karmelis to Rosh Hashanah. Says Rashi, the Rabban did not apply the status of karmelis to a kli, since it's a utensil. The Rabban didn't negate its utensil status and give it a din of a karmelis. because the Rabban only applied the halacha of karmelis to an open space, an open area, to the ground, not to a kli, not to a utensil. Therefore, in this case, the Chachamim did not give it a din, a gather of karmelis, and therefore it is batal to Rosh Hashanah. It is considered to be subordinate to the ground below to Rosh Hashanah. It also has the status of Rosh Hashanah, and certainly one may transfer from within this kuppah, which is Rosh Hashanah, to the Rosh Hashanah outside of the kuppah. So this is the beginning of the Brisa. The Brisa concludes with the words of V'chein beguma. The same concept will apply to a guma, to a pit. Says the Gemara, my love, apparently, aseifa, that the term V'chein beguma is applicable to both clauses in the Brisa, to the Reisha and to the Seifa. We have two halachas in this Brisa. The first part of the Brisa told us that if it has the dimension of a Shisa it's 10 high and 4 wide, then it's considered to be a Shisa. If it's less than that, then it's not a Shisa any longer, it's a Shisa Rabim. When the Brisa concludes, V'chein beguma, the same halachas will apply to a pit. That, depending on its size, we give it its appropriate status. If it's 10 deep and has a surface space of 4x4, it's a Rosh Hashanah. But if it's less than 10 deep, what will it be? A Rosh Hashanah. And this challenges Rava's Shita. How could Rava say that a pit can never be a Rosh Hashanah if it's 9 tefachim deep? We see a Brisa which tells us otherwise, that a pit which is 9 tefachim deep has a din of Rosh Hashanah. Says the conclusion of the Brisa, V'chein beguma, only applies to the first part of the Brisa, the first clause, that if it has a dimension of Rosh Hashanah, it's 10 tefachim deep, and has a surface area of 4x4, then indeed it's Rosh Hashanah. But the second halach of the Brisa, which tells us that if it's less than 10 tefachim deep, less than 10 tefachim high, it is a Rosh Hashanah, that will not apply to a guma, because a guma, if it is 9 tefachim deep, is not a Rosh Hashanah. Says Gemara Esvei, so he asked him another kasha, he challenged Rava from another Brisa. How can you say that a pit, a guma which is 9 tefachim deep, is not a Rosh Hashanah? Listen to this Brisa. Niskaven lishboy Rosh Hashanah. If one had intended to be shoyvis Rosh Hashanah, to establish his Shabbos residence in Rosh Hashanah, v'yiniach eruvei bebor, and he places eruv tchumen in a pit. Now this halacha involves the halacha of eruv tchumen. We know that one is not meant to travel more than 2,000 amis away from his home, from his residence. Now there's a way to extend the distance by placing an eruv, placing some food at a certain point in the distance, which that constitutes his Shabbos residence. As Rashi explains, a person relates and identifies and connects with the place that contains his food, which is his livelihood. So therefore one can reestablish his Shabbos residence at the place where he deposits his food, and that is considered to be his Mochim Shvisa, his place of Shabbos residence, and therefore he can use that as his home, and he may walk from there a radius of 2,000 Amma. So if one places the Eruv Techumen at some point in the distance, which is accessible to him on Shabbos, which is accessible to him at the point of the onset of Shabbos. Since, when is the Eruv Techumen Chal? When is it activated? It's activated Ben Hashmash, the beginning of Shabbos, right at the onset of Shabbos. It has to be accessible to the person. It has to be accessible to the person so that he can go ahead and eat his food. Thereby, it's considered his Makom Shvisa, his home. Says the Bryce, if he was in a Skaven Lishbeis V'Shusarabim, if he intended to be Shovis, to establish his place of residence in Shusarabim, but he places his food, his Erev Tchumen, inside a pit. Now once again, it must be accessible, fully accessible to him, without being over any Yisurim, without transgressing any prohibitions. Therefore, says the Brisa, if it's within his reach, then the Erev is activated. But if it's beyond his reach, then it is not considered to be an Erev. So if he intended to be Shavis Yishusarab, he placed an Erev in a bar. So it depends what type of bar it was. If it's Lamalam Yutfachim, if the bar is higher than 10 Tfachim, Erev, then the Erev is an Erev. Lamatim Yutfachim. But if it's lower than 10 Tfachim, Ein Erev, then it's not considered to be a good Erev. Now, we don't know yet what exactly this means, Lamalim Yutfachim or Lamatim Yutfachim, but the concept here is that if it's accessible to him during the onset of Shabbos at the point of Ben Hashmashos, he can reach his food without being over any Yisurim, then the Erev is Chal. But otherwise, it's not an Erev. Says the Gemara, Hechi Dami, what exactly is the circumstance here? What exactly does it mean? Lamalam Yutfachim, Erev Erev, Lamatim Yutfachim, Ein Erev Erev. What does this mean? Ilema Babar, the Isbe Asora. We're speaking about a bar which has 10 tfachim. Ulamala, what does it mean? Lamalam Yutfachim, Erev Erev. It means the Deloi V'Oisvei, that he put the Erev higher than 10 tfachim from the ground of the bar. Ulamata, what does it mean? Lamata miyutfachim ein eruv erev. It means that the tesai v'oisvei, that he put it within 10 tfachim of the bottom of the bar. Says the Gemara, how does that explain the halacha? If the pit contains 10 tfachim, it's 10 tfachim deep, then it's just a yachid. What difference does it make where he places an erev? Whether it was beyond 10 tfachim of the floor of the bar, or is within 10 tfachim of the floor of the bar, it's irrelevant. Mali lamala, mali lamata. What's the difference if he placed the erev higher or lower? In any case, the erev is inaccessible to the person who is present in Rosh Hashanah. When he intended to be Shabbos in Rosh Hashanah, his place of residence is in Rosh Hashanah. He can't access the food which is in the Rosh Hashanah, which is in this pit, which is 10 tfachim deep, regardless of where exactly within this pit his erev is located. So once again, let's see the words again. Hechidami, what exactly is the circumstance here? If we're speaking about a pit which is 10 tfachim deep, which is a Rosh Hashanah, and what does the Brisa mean? Lamala miyutfachim. It means lamala the deloi va'isvei, that he placed the erev beyond 10 tfachim from the floor, from the bottom of the pit. Ulamata, when the Brisa says that he placed the erev lamati mitfachim, means he placed it within 10 tfachim of the floor of the pit. He lowered it and put it there. Mali lamali mali mata. What difference does it make if it's higher or lower? Hu b'makam echad v'erev b'makam acher. At the final analysis of things, he is in Rosh Hashanah and the erev is in Rosh Hashanah, and certainly the erev cannot be activated, cannot be effective in this case. Hu b'makam echad v'erev b'makam acheru. Ella must be that we must interpret the words of the Brisa differently. We're speaking about Elolah, we're speaking about Babar, the less V'asor, a bar which is not 10 tfachim deep. And the Brisa tells us, therefore, if it's not 10 tfachim deep, so therefore, if he puts the erev in this shallow bar, if it's an erev put in a bar which is Lamala miyutfachim, which is higher than 10 tfachim, meaning it's within 10 tfachim to the surface of Rishus HaRabim, the bar itself does not contain a depth of 10 tfachim. It is an erev because it's accessible to him, even though he's in Rishus HaRabim and his erev is in the pit. They're both in the same domain, and therefore since he can access his food, the erev is chal. Says more again, Elolah, we must be speaking about bar de les bi'asora. When the Brisa tells us that he placed the erev in a bar which is lamala miyutfachim, what does the Brisa mean? A bar which has less than 10 tfachim. It is shallower than 10 tfachim. Uktani eruv erev. And the Brisa tells us that placing an erev there is effective. The erev can function as an erev. So once again, when the Brisa distinguishes between lamalim yutfachim and lamatim yutfachim, what the Brisa really meant to say was as follows. It depends what type of bar it was. If it was a bar which was lamalim yutfachim, which was within 10 tfachim of the Rishus HaRabim, meaning this is the surface of the Rishus HaRabim, where he is being Shabbos, and the bar, the pit, the floor of the pit, the ground of the pit is lamalim yutfachim, meaning it's within 10 tfachim of the Rishus HaRabim. So the erev which is placed in this bar is considered to be in the same rishus as the person, and it works. But if the bar is deeper than 10 tfachim, it is lamatim yutfachim, meaning that the surface, the bottom surface of the bar, is lower 10 tfachim of the surface of Rishus HaRabim. In that case, the bar is considered to be a Rishus HaYachid, and placing an erev there is ineffective, because he is being Shabbos in Rishus HaRabim, and his erev is down below in the bar which is Rishus HaYachid. So what do we deduce from this Brisa? What do we infer from this Brisa? That a pit which is less than 10 tfachim deep has a din of Rishus HaRabim, and this is inconsistent with Rabbah. Alma apparently tashmish al de'atchak shmei tashmish. A pit which is less than 10 tfachim, for instance, it's 9 tfachim deep, is considered part of Rosh Hashanah because the Rosh Hashanah use it. They deposit their items there. It is a tashmish, even though it's it's a force, it's inconvenient use. Nevertheless, it's considered to be a proper usage and considered to be part of the shimush, part of the Rosh Hashanah domain. And therefore, placing an Erev there is considered to be in the same domain as the person who's Shavas Lamala Rosh Hashanah. So this is a steer contradiction to Rava. So how will Rava address this brisa? Says the Gemara, Rava had an answer. Zimnin mishanele. Sometimes Rava would respond as follows. I'll explain to you the meaning of the brisa. The brisa is speaking about that he and his heir are both in a Carmelis, meaning he didn't intend to establish his Shvisa and Rosh Hashanah, but rather in a Carmelis, for instance, in a Bika, a valley. Huve Ruve Bekarmelis. The person and his heir were both in a Carmelis. He intended to be Shavis in a Bika, an open valley, which is a Carmelis. And when he places his Erev in the pit nearby, which is also a Carmelis, since it's less than 10 tefachim deep, therefore, he and his Erev are both in the same Rishus, and it's certainly 100% accessible, and the Erev is activated and is Chal. So, of course, a pit in Rosh Hashanah is not a Rosh Hashanah. The Brisa here is not speaking about Rosh Hashanah, it's speaking about a Carmelis. If so, says the Gemara, why did the Brisa use the word Carmelis? The Brisa began the first few words on the Amud, and this Kavan Lish Rosh Hashanah. So how can we say that it's not a Rosh Hashanah, but rather it was a Carmelis? And it's consistent with the bar, which is also a Carmelis. Va'amai karle Rosh Hashanah, lefi she'ein Rosh Hashanah. The Brisa merely is contrasting it to Rosh Hashanah. The Brisa is telling us that it wasn't a Rosh Hashanah, because as Rashi explains, if he meant to be Kohen Shvisa to establish his residence in Rosh Hashanah, in that case, even a pit which is deep 10 tefachim would be fine, because he is in Rosh Hashanah, and the pit of Rosh Hashanah, regardless of the size of the pit, he and his Erev are both in the same domain, and the Erev is Chal. Therefore, the Brisa stresses that he was in Skav and Lishvit Rosh Hashanah. The Brisa simply means to say that it wasn't Rosh Hashanah. But of course, it didn't mean literally Rosh Hashanah, but rather it meant a Carmelis. In that case, it's fine, since he's in a Carmelis, and the Erev is in a pit, which is less than 10 tefachim, which is also a Carmelis. He and his Erev are on the same Rishus, and fully accessible to him, and therefore constitutes a full-fledged legal Erev. So this was one approach, one answer, one response of Rava, how to reinterpret this Brisa in accordance, consistent with his Shita. Certainly, a bar, a gumar shesharam, cannot be a Carmelis. We're speaking about a bar which is in a Carmelis. So the bar is a Carmelis, and the surface outside the bar is a Carmelis. Therefore, him and his Erev are on the same rishus. V'zimnon, says the Gemara, sometimes Mishani the Rava would answer as follows. We'll give a different answer to this kasha. Certainly, we're speaking about Huber Shesharavim, that the person intended to establish his Shvisa in a Shesharavim. Ve'ruve beKarmelis, you're right. The person was in Rosh Hashanah, and the Erev was down in the pit below, which was a Carmelis, since it was less than 10 tefachim. If so, we have the kasha. Let's get back to the kasha. How could the Erev work? If he is in Rosh Hashanah, and the pit, according to Rav, is not Rosh Hashanah, but rather it's a Carmelis, so it's inaccessible to him. Midrabanan, one may not transfer an item from a Carmelis to Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, since it's inaccessible to him at the onset of Shabbos, the Erev can't work. The point of Shvisa again is that he is Kohen Shvisa, he's establishing his residence at the place of the food, of the pas, of the bread. In this case, it's inaccessible to him. So how could the Erev work? Says the Gemara, indeed, v'Rebbe. This brisa follows the Shita of Rebbe, who holds the Amar. Kol davar shu mishum shvus. Anything which is usher, mishum shvus, meaning it's an issa d'Rabbanan on Shabbos, like gozro le'ben hashmashos, was not applied to the point of ben hashmashos twilight. Rashi explains, the Rabban only made their decrees, their gzeres, their isurim, when it is vadai, when it is Shabbos of certain. It is certainly Shabbos. But when there is a suffix, it's twilight, it's ben hashmashos, it's still a suffix Shabbos, we're uncertain of whether Shabbos has already commenced. In that case, there is no Issa D'Rabbanan. Therefore, explains Rashi, in this case, when is the Erev Chal? When is the Erev activated? Is at this first point of Shabbos, it has been hashmashos. Ben Hashmash is the point in time when the Erev Tchumen is activated. At that point in time, he has a full access. Because although he's in Rosh Hashanah, and his Erev is in a Carmelis, in the pit below, he can fully access the Erev. Why? Because during Ben Hashmashis, there's no Isser to transfer an item from a Karmelis to Rishus Harabim, according to Rebbe. This is the second answer of Rava to the Brisa. So the kasha again was, you Rava who holds that a pit which is 9 tefachim deep, even a Rishus Harabim, is not a Rishus Harabim, but rather it's a Karmelis. How are you going to explain the halacha of Erev Tchumen, where the Brisa tells us that if he is Koine Shvisa in Rishus Harabim, he can place his Erev even in a pit which is 9 tefachim deep. If the pit is not a Rishus Harabim, but rather a Karmelis, how can the Erev work if it's inaccessible to him? Says Rava, number one, Teretz was speaking about that he was Koine Shvisa in the Karmelis as well. So him and his Erev are on the same Rishus. Number two, even if he was Koine Shvisa, if he established his Shabbos residence in a Rishus Harabim, we're following the Shita of Rebbe, who allows access to a Karmelis, allows the item to be transferred from a Karmelis to Rishus Harabim during Ben Hashmashis, which is exactly the point in time when his Erev is activated and he requires access to his Erev. You shouldn't think merely, Rabbi speaking, don't think I'm merely rejecting your opinion. I'm speaking very specific and very certain. I will bring you a raya to my opinion that a pit, a guma, 9 tefachim deep in Rishus Harabim, is not considered to be a Rishus Harabim. I'll bring you a raya from the following Mishnah. This nam im hoya rekek mayim Rishus Harabim malechas boy. If there was a shallow pool of water, a rekak mayim, and the Rishus Harabim was passing through it, hazurek l'seicha dal damas chayv. If one throws into this pool of water from a distance of 4 amas, his chayv is considered to be maver 4 amas Rishus Harabim. This rekak, this shallow pool of water, is also considered to be part of Rishus Harabim. V'kamo rekak mayim. How deep can this puddle be and still constitute Rishus Harabim? Pachas miyut tefachim, if it's less than 10 tefachim deep. Continues the Mishnah, urakak mayim Rishus Harabim malechas boy. If there's a pool of water which Rishus Harabim walks through, hazarek l'soicha dal damas chayev. If one throws an item from a distance of 4 amas into this pool of water, he's chayev. So why the repetition in the Mishnah? The Mishnah seems to be restating the same halacha twice. It says in Rabbi Shlomo, it's all good and well. Rukak trei zimni. Why the Brisa needs to tell it? Why the Mishnah needs to repeat this scenario of the pool of water twice? One is for the summer, one for the winter. We require the halacha to be stated in regard to summer and winter as well. They're both required because one is unlike the other. They're both two separate types of halachas, and the Mishnah needs to state the same halacha to be applied in the summer and the winter as well. We can't learn one for the other. Because if the Mishnah will only tell us regarding the summer, I would think a puddle in the summertime, yeah, that's part of Rishus Harabim. The Avidi, Inshi, because it is common that people, that people want to cool themselves off, so they will step into this puddle. So therefore, it's considered to be part of the thoroughfare, as the status of Rishus Harabim. But in the wintertime, where this concept doesn't apply, perhaps I would think, it doesn't have a din of Rishus Harabim. It is an interruption. It's considered to be a separate area, and it is not considered to be part of the thoroughfare. Therefore, the Mishnah needs to tell us, yes, even in the winter, it is considered to be part of Rishus Harabim, since it's merely a shallow pool of water. And if the Mishnah would tell us in the reverse, that in the winter, it is considered to be part of Rishus Harabim, I would think there's a reason for that. Agav de metanev, since people are, in any case, dirty as a result of the mud in the wintertime, mikri v'nachis, so on occasion they will go down they'll walk through the pool of water. It's not a big deal, they're dirty anyways. But in the summertime, when this factor is non-existent, loy, I would think perhaps the pool of water is not a Rishus Harabim tzricha. Therefore the Mishnah needs to stress that in both seasons, summer as well as winter, the pool of water is considered to be a full-fledged Rishus Harabim. Yes, the public does walk through it as long as it's less than 10 tefachim deep. Therefore, if one throws an item 4 tefachim into this puddle, it's considered to be maver for ames and Rishus Harabim. So we understand why the Mishnah repeats itself regarding Rekak and states this scenario in 2 different applications. One is Chama, one is Chasham. Ela hiluch treizim nilamli. Why does the Mishnah need to repeat the words hiluch? The Mishnah should simply say in the Seifa that a Rekak Mayim that is in Rishus Harabim is considered to be Rishus Harabim. Why does the Mishnah need to say Once again, Erekak Mayim, that Rishus Rab Malechas Boy. Why do you need to repeat this again to describe how the public is walking through it? It seems to be repetitious and unnecessary. Says Rava, the mission is coming to stress something. Elolav Shma Mina. It's coming to teach us Hiluch al Deatchak Shmei Hiluch. Walking out of inconvenience. It is inconvenient to walk through this puddle that you wet. It's not something which is so convenient. It's al de'atchak. It's a forced hiluch, a forced walkthrough. Nevertheless, the mission tells us that too is considered to be part of the hiluch, part of the thoroughfare, and is considered to be Rishus Harabim. Therefore, the mission stresses and repeats it again. The reason why this is a part of Rishus Harabim because walking through al de'atchak is considered to be a hiluch. And we're meant to infer and imply from here, make a diuk, that only hiluch al de'atchak is Rishus Harabim. But tashmish al de'atchak lo yishmei tashmish. But a forced usage, for instance, a pit on the floor, on the ground, on the surface of Rishus Harabim, below the surface of the thoroughfare, since it's a forced usage, it's inconvenient, you must bend down to deposit items there. That is not part of Rishus Harabim. And this is consistent with Rava's Shita, that a pit, a guma Rishus Harabim, is not a Rishus Harabim Shma Mina. Indeed, this is a raya to Rava's Shita. So in summary, a amud Rishus Harabim, a post in Rishus Harabim. What halacha does it have? It depends on its height. If it's within 3 tefachim of Rishus Harabim, it's less than 3 tefachim beyond the surface. It is a part of Rishus Harabim. It's like lava to Rishus Harabim. It is like it's flush to Rishus Harabim. The Gemara explains that the public tramples upon it, they tread upon it, it's part of Rishus Harabim. When it's Mishloisha V'Atisha from 3 to 9, it is not like Rishus Harabim. It could be a karmelis if it has the surface of 4x4. It could be Makam Tur if it's less than 4x4. But certainly it's not Rishus Harabim. If it's 9 tefachim high, in that case, since the Bnei Rishus Harabim use it to adjust their loads on it, it's a very convenient stopping point. Therefore, it's b'meshamash the Bnei Rishus Harabim and has a din of Rishus Harabim. What about a guma, a pit in Rishus Harabim, which is 9 tefachim deep? Abaye says has the same din of the amud, and it too is considered to be Rishus Harabim. Rava says no, it's not like Rishus Harabim because it's a tashmish al de'atchak and does not have the status of a tashmish, and therefore it's not part of the usage, part of the hiluch, part of the Rishus Harabim domain, and not part of the shimush of Rishus Harabim, and does not have a din of Rishus Harabim, but rather has a din of a karmelis. If it's 4x4, if it's less than 4x4, then it can have a din of a makam tur. Now there's a kasha on the halacha of amud. Rashi points out that a post which is 9 tefachim high, regardless of its surface area, could be even 1 by 1, has a din of Rishus Harabim. And if one were to throw an item from a distance of 4 amas away onto this amud, and it landed there, it is as though it landed on Rishus Harabim, and he is over his chayiv. Why is that so? Don't we know that hanacha needs to be on a mokim chashiv, on an area which has a surface space of 4 by 4 tefachim? This amud is very narrow. The Mefarshim answer that since it is unique, this amud is positioned in a very unique place. It is alongside the Rishus Harabim and is used frequently by the Bnei Rishus Harabim as part of their carrying their loads. So it's a convenient stopping point to be mekatif to adjust the loads. Therefore, it has a chashivus. It is a makom chashuv. It's a significant area, and it has the same status as a makom chashuv of 4 by 4 tefachim. It is equated to 4 by 4. So even though it's very narrow, it has a din of a full-fledged hanacha, similar to the concept of one's hand. We mentioned earlier in the Gemara, a person's hand is also chashuv like 4 by 4 tefachim, because the person regularly places items in his hand. It is his regular mode, his regular vehicle of transporting items, of holding items. So even though the surface area of one's hand is certainly less than 4 by 4, it has a din of 4 by 4, and hanoch in one's hand is considered to be a full-fledged hanocha. Same here. A hanocha on top of this amud, which is very convenient and very useful, has a din of a makom chashuv like daled al daled. Continues the Gemara. Amar Yehuda, Haizirza dekani, this bundle of reeds, Rama v'zakfe, Rama v'zakfe. If one transported them in the following manner, he picks up one side of it and propels it forward, picks up the other side, propels it forward. That's how he transfers it and transports it through the Rishus Harabim. Lo mechayiv, he's not chayiv. Ad akarle, until he completely uproots it and picks up both ends at the same time. Tosfos points out, certainly if one drags an item along the ground of Rishus Harabim, or rolls an item, in that case he's chayiv. Why? Because the entire item is lifting at the same time. In this case, since he's doing it in a staggered manner, he's picking up one end while the other one is still stationary and propels it forward, does the same thing with the other side. In this case, since he hadn't lifted both sides at once, there's no akira taking place at once on the entire object. Therefore, he is pater. Tosfos points out that the chiddush here is, perhaps I would think to equate this with the halacha of kituf. We know that if one is walking through Rishus Harabim and he goes ahead and he adjusts his load, he stops for a moment to adjust his load, we consider it to be as if he's still walking, because the adjustment is necessary for the hiluch. Here too says Tosfos, although it's a heavy load and it's the derech, it is the usual manner, the usual practice to transport it in this manner. Perhaps I would think it's like kituf, and although part of it is resting, nevertheless considered to be one big akira. Nevertheless, says the Gemara, no, he's pater. Says Rav Moshe Feinstein, what is the difference? Because by kituf, when a person is adjusting his load, the load is still on him. He's really adjusting it on him, so he hadn't really placed the load. He hadn't really deposited and put it down anywhere. In this case, part of the bundle is actually resting on the floor below. Therefore, he is pater since no akira took place. Amar Mar, we learned in the Brisa, Adam oymed al eskupa, one stands on the threshold. Noitum ba'abayis v'noisen lo, you can take an item from the balabayis, the homeowner in the Rishus Hayachid. V'noisen lo, same thing vice versa, you can take an item from the eskupa and give it to the balabayis. Noitum mi ani v'noisen lo, he can do the same thing regarding the ani standing in Rishus Harabim. Says, well, let's analyze. Hay eskupa mai. What is the status of this threshold? Ilay me eskupa is Rishus Harabim. We're speaking about that it has the din of Rishus Harabim, has the dimensions of Rishus Harabim. How can he do this? Noitum abayis. How can he take an item from the balabayis in Rishus Hayachid and take it out to himself? Ha mapik Rishus Hayachid Rishus Harabim. He's taking out an item from Rishus Hayachid Rishus Harabim. The ella must be a skupat Rishus Hayachid. Must be that it's Rishus Hayachid. If so, how can he take the item from the ani? Noitum min ani. How come ayil Rishus Harabim Rishus Hayachid? He's taking an item from the ani outside and bringing it to the skupa Rishus Hayachid. Ella must be that the askupa here is a karmelis, ela askupa is karmelis, and therefore he can take an item from either the balabayis or the ani. Says the Gemara, how does that make sense? Noitel v'noisen lechatchila? He can go ahead and actually do it lechatchila, take an item from Rishus Harabim to himself, or Rishus Hayachid to himself, soif. On the final analysis of things, isura me'isa, there's issa d'rabbanan to transfer an item from Rishus Hayachid to a karmelis, or from Rishus Harabim to a karmelis. Ella says the Gemara must be speaking about a skupa makom p'tur ba'almu. Speaking about a skupa that has the dimensions of a makom p'tur, and therefore this is permitted. Kegoyin, for instance, less bedal dal dal, it doesn't have the surface of 4 square and has din of a makom p'tur, and therefore one may transfer an item to a makom p'tur from Rishus Harabim or from Rishus Hayachid. V'chiyah, similar to the halacha of the chiyasa Rav Dimi. When Rav Dimi came, he said in the name of Rav Yochanan, makom she'em bedal dal dal tfachim, a place which has less, a surface less than 4 by 4 tfachim. That's a makom p'tur. It's a makom which is batal to the adjacent area, and therefore mutar l'vnei Rishus Hayachid u'l'vnei Rishus Harabim lekatif alav. Therefore, the bnei Rishus Hayachid can adjust their loads on this makom p'tur. The bnei Rishus Harabim can do the same, because there's no isra itzah to a makom p'tur. Ubelvad, provided shalei achlifu, they don't exchange items. That the bnei Rishus Hayachid shouldn't place their item on this makom p'tur and relay the item to the Bnei Rishus Harabim in that manner, because since in the final analysis of things it will result in an item being transferred from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim or vice versa, even though it's derech, it's via this exempt area, there's an isra d'rabbanan, as we mentioned earlier. It could be a zilzal in Hilchos Shabbos, or there's a gzeira here that if you do it this way, perhaps you will directly take an item from Rameshus to the other, from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim, or vice versa. The Chachamim disallowed it; they prohibited transferring and relaying an item from Rishus Hayachid to Rishus Harabim, or vice versa, via placing it on a makom p'tur. Amar Mar, we just learned, he shouldn't take an item from the balabayis and transfer it and relay it past the askupa, which is makom p'tur, and transfer it over to the ani. And the same thing in the reverse, he shouldn't The person who's standing on the askuba, which is the makam tur, shouldn't take from the ani v'nois malbais. V'imnota v'nasan, but if he did so, shlasham tur, and they're pater because he didn't do an issa deraisa. Says the Gemara, is that so? That an item which passes through a makam tur, it's considered as though it interrupted, it terminated its maaseh akira, and it is not considered to be one continuous activity. Lema tavet to the Rava. Perhaps this is a stira to Rava. Domarav hamar v'chefetz. If one is standing in Shus Rabim and he transfers an item mitchilas dal l'soiv dal, from the beginning of 4 amas to the end of dalad amas, meaning he takes an item from one side of 4 amas and brings it over across himself and puts it down. Hanacha at the end of 4 amas in Shus Rabim. Aval pisha avir derech olav, even though he passed it. Derech olav, he passed it above him. Rashi says he passed it above 10 tefachim, out of reach of Shus Rabim, which is a makam tur. Chayiv, he's still chayiv. So we see that even though the item transferred through, it traversed through a makam tur, we disregard that. We don't reckon with that. Since he picked it up from Shus Rabim and he landed it, he deposited it, he put it down back on Shus Rabim, even though it passed through a makam tur, that doesn't terminate. It is not mafsik the malacha, and he's chayiv. Here too, says the Gemara, why in our case? Is he potter if he stands on a skupa, which is a makam tur, and he takes an item from the balabayis, from the Rishus HaYachid, and transfers it through the makam tur, transfers it and relays it to the ani who was standing outside in Shus Rabim? Why is he potter? Although it passed through makam tur, we know that doesn't affect the ma'isa. Says the Gemara, in that case it hadn't landed. He merely transferred it through the airspace of the makam tur. So since it didn't land, it never landed in makam tur, we don't reckon with that. Hacha, in our case, nach, it landed, it rested in makam tur, because although the item which the person is holding, person who's on the eskup is holding the item, and the item actually is in transit, it's in motion in the person's hand. But let's look at the person. Where's the person stationed? He is stationary on a makam tur. So since the item is contained in the hand of a person, of a fellow who is standing stationary on a makam tur, it's considered as though there was a hanach on the makam tur, and that terminates the maisa. It terminates the initial akira. It puts it to a stop, and therefore there's no connection between the akira from Rishus HaYachid, which became terminated in the makam tur, and then the anacha of Shus Rabim, which is a totally new maisa, unrelated, unconnected to the previous maisa, and therefore he's potter. So, in summary, a makam tur, if a person is standing in a makam tur, he can take from Rishus HaYachid, he can take from Shus Rabim, but he cannot relay from one to the other. It's an issa d'Rabbanan. What about if an item is transferred through a makam tur? That depends. If it was loy nach but never landed, it never came to rest, for instance, if the person who's standing in Shus Rabim took an item, picked it up, and brought it through the makam tur, higher than 10 tefachim, but then eventually landed it back on Shus Rabim, in this case, the item didn't land in a makam tur, because the person is standing in Shus Rabim. But in a case where it was nach, landed in a makam tur, for instance, in our case, where a person was standing on a makam tur, in that case, it's considered as though the item landed, rested, came to hanach in the makam tur, and that terminates the malacha, and therefore the initial akira with the final halacha are disconnected, unrelated, and this is not considered to be a ma'isa hitzah, and he is pater.